Hi there, it's me again, Sonia from The Art of Stamping with another card making video. It doesn't often happen that I do a few videos in a row, and this one came into being very spontaneously over the weekend because I had a bit more spare time left than usual, and this fun idea for a quick and easy card I wanted to share with you. It's all about contrastive background stamping with outline stamps. For my card, I'll first do some background sponging with distressings. I'll be using mowed lawn, mustard seed and faded jeans to do so. I'm using Hexacomta index cards by Clairefontaine for this task because they're made from really smooth Bristol paper which allows for perfect blending. All stamps I'm using are by Create a Smile stamps. First off, I'm using the leaves from their Time to Say Thanks set, and later on I'll be using another of their popular floral sets called Botanical Love. I start by masking off a tilted rectangle on my panel, which marks the area I'll be sponging my ink on. After masking, I also apply some painter's tape on the masked off areas, which not only keeps my panel in place when sponging, but also covers the stitching that was left by the die I used to create my mask. I only had a stitched rectangle die in the size I needed for my mask, and I was afraid my sponging would bleed through the stitching if I didn't cover it properly. The work base I'm using here is a sample Formica tile from the hardware store. Its surface is non-porous and helps me to softly glide onto my paper with my blending tool so that the ink goes on easily. I also try to be as light-handed with my blending tool as possible to lay down the ink smoothly. The lighter you work, the less streaky your background will turn out in the end. That way, the sponging will of course look rather pale at first. If you want to obtain a brighter color, you'll have to sponge on the ink in several layers, as you see me doing here. After my sponging is done, I spritz on some water to receive a splattered effect that evokes an impression of rain or dewdrops. It sometimes can happen that I feel the water took off too much of the ink. In those cases, I go over the areas I don't like with my blending tool once more to tone down the effect again. Now it's time to stamp down the outline images. I'm using my MISTI here to do so because it's easier to stamp several stamps in one batch with this tool, and you can stamp over your images again and again without running the risk of getting a blurred impression. However, if you don't own a MISTI, you can of course stamp your images one after another using a simple acrylic block. To get a crisp and contrastive impression, I'm using VersaFine ink in Onyx Black for stamping. This ink is perfect for my task because it's deep black and guarantees fine, detailed impressions. And here's my finished background panel. To finish off my card, I'll be adding a white embossed greeting on a stripe of black cardstock and a vellum accent on the left. Both the greeting and the leaf stamp for the vellum accent are taken from the Botanical Love set by Create a Smile stamps. I'm using the MISTI again to help me with the placement for my greeting. I put down my finished panel and layer my black cardstock on top where I want it to go later on. That way I can align my greeting within the space defined by my tilted rectangle. To avoid stray spots of embossing powder, I'm dusting over the black cardstock with my powder tool before I stamp down my greeting. For stamping, I'm then using Versamark ink. I'm using white embossing powder by German manufacturer Design for the greeting. It's a bit coarse, but as it is a bolder greeting I'm working with here, it's not really necessary to use a fine detailed powder. I love to use fine powders because they provide for a crisper image, but they also leave much more stray spots on the cardstock. That's why I also try to avoid them whenever I can. I don't need the MISTI for stamping the leaf for my vellum accent because I will fuzzy cut it later on anyway and don't care about perfect placement here. Again, I'm using VersaFine ink for stamping, but as the leaf has a lot of details and thin lines, I'm using a fine powder by Wow to emboss it. Before gluing all of my card's elements together, I'm adding some animal accents next to the greeting to give my card a bit more interest. These accents are also sold by Create Smile Stamps. Now it finally is time to bring it all together. To glue down the background panel onto my card base, I'm using ordinary tape runner. To give my card a bit more of dimension, I'm adhering the greeting with foam tape. For the vellum accent, I'm using clear Cooltech foam. I first tried to adhere it flat using a tape runner especially designed for adhering vellum. I really like to use it a lot with vellum, but unfortunately it showed through against the black cardstock, so that I opted for the Cooltech in the end. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Should you have any questions or remarks, as always, just comment on my blog or in the YouTube section below. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of my card making stuff. Have a nice day. Bye!